Hello, sisters. Welcome to the Sacred Medicine Podcast, weaving powerful, soulful practices into functional medicine. Step into this beautiful space of devotion and explore everything from nurturing foods, rituals, sexuality, and awakening your innate sensuality. It is time to own your radiance. This is the Sacred Medicine Podcast. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sacred Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Margaret Romero, and today I'm really excited to have Andy Drish with us today. And can I just tell you what an amazing human being he is, and the things that he is doing in his partnership with his fiance are just, they're beautiful. We talk about the rituals that they do. They have weekly rituals, they have quarterly rituals, and monthly rituals. And I loved everything about what he's doing. And it's so profound and so deep. So if you are looking to deepen your relationship with your partner in such a different way, and I don't even know how to describe it, because let me tell you, what he is doing is not the norm, because it's not really being taught to the men and women of the world. What he is doing is not only quite profound, and it's something that I absolutely would start implementing in my next relationship, but it's so life-changing, and it is just hands down the most pivotal thing I think a couple can do together to not only deepen their relationship, but to just have this beautiful sense of commitment to each other. The way he expresses his love and just both of their desires to have such an epic partnership is it's profound and it's palpable. So you really have to listen to this, the whole thing. It's phenomenal, and something that all of us should really start implementing even a little bit into our partnerships and see what happens. Because I only see growth coming out of it, and deeper sense of love towards two people. It's just, I had such an amazing conversation. I need to have him back on, just so we can talk about so many different things when it comes to relationships. So without further ado, Andy Drish. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sacred Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Margaret Romero, and I'm really excited by today's guest, Andy Drish. You know, when I met him, actually the first time I heard about him was on Liz D'Alto's podcast. It was last year sometime. And there was just something about how he spoke about relationships and his girlfriend at the time, now fiance, that really sparked something in me. And I listened to that podcast a couple of times, and lo and behold, I'm in Miami on a random, weekend with my girlfriends. I step into the hot tub, and there's Andy. Literally, I had just listened to your podcast again for like the second time, like on my flight in, or that day while I was putting on my bathing suit, I had it on. And so there you are. And so I came up to you and I said, "Oh my God, are you Andy Drish?" And it was amazing. The kismet and everything. It was just really cool to meet you in person. And then we chatted some more in the sauna. And so I'm so happy that you're here today. Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm stoked to be here. We had a great chat then, and I'm stoked that we're circling back a year and a half later, or whatever it's been.
Yeah. 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 I think it was actually
Six,
November.
nine
You
months,
were
9 months ago.
Summit at Sea. I think that's what
Yep.
you were doing. Yeah. So today, this podcast is all about empowering women around so many different topics, particularly relationships. And, there is a vibe that you give off and a vibe that you gave off. And that vibe is something that I hung on to because it's very rare for me to meet a man with the type of vibration like yours. And it wasn't exactly because I can't remember exactly what you said or the phrases or anything like that, but it was what you gave off and that the energy that you had in your relationship and how conscious you are in your relationship, in your current relationship. And I would love to unpack that because it is something, as you know, that women are, and I'm sure they come up to you all the time, and I'm sure people say this to you all the time, that women that I surround myself with and the women that listen to this podcast, we all want that conscious man, right? And we feel like it's a little bit hard to come by. And sometimes I feel that men are slightly Neanderthal-like, and they're sort of just roaming around, and we kind of like don't really know what we're doing, and they don't know how to understand us, and there's like communications like all fucked up, and so I would love to. Well, one is let's first talk about how you came to be the man that you are today. Like, were there mentors? Because there really aren't that many mentors, and how you've cultivated it so beautifully. And I'd love to learn more about what's happening in your current relationship and sort of what
Yeah.
you do on a weekly or monthly basis to sort of make your relationship so rich and so beautiful.
Yeah. So, I will absolutely get into that piece. Um, First, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of relationship in general at a high level, and then we'll get into a little bit of the details of how Libby and I do our relationships. And if you're listening to this, I'm not. I don't consider myself a relationship expert. I'm. We've got a company called The Foundation I've been running for a long time. We're starting a new one right now, and I believe that our perspective as a whole, our cultural perspective on relationship is totally screwed up.
Mm.
And the collective as a whole doesn't have any role models for great partnership. So
Yes.
I've been an entrepreneur since I was in my early 20s, and I've found incredible mentors to teach me business. And the challenging part was every time that I would talk with an entrepreneur, it seemed like I was getting advice from some man in his 40s who was either divorced 3 times or remarried or unhappy and unfulfilled in his marriage. And to find somebody who is an entrepreneur and who has a passionate, loving, caring relationship seemed just like a unicorn in its own sense.
Mm-hmm.
And Libby and I have been fortunate to attract a couple people who've been phenomenal mentors that have helped us in this space. And what we're coming to believe is that there's a way of relating that I'm just not seeing from many people that is that feels so much more like truth to me, Margaret, and so much more powerful than what I've been exposed to for most of my life. And it is, if at a high level, what we're looking at is the way that Libby and I try to hold each other is each of us holds the key to us unlocking our full potential in life, in our ability to create whatever it is that we want to in this world. Libby knows more than any other woman in the world exactly what I need to evolve as a man. It's designed in this beautifully genius way. And so you ask, like, how have I raised my awareness and my consciousness in all these ways? It's by paying attention to Libby and to her feedback. Mm-hmm. We met when we were 23 and 24, super young in Iowa. I grew up in a small town in a farm. She grew up in Minnesota. And that's been the driving force that shaped me. And I've had some incredible mentors and stuff along the way. But I think if there's one thing that I could get men and women in relationship to do more, is to surrender more to the feedback of their partner, because more often than not, it's really dialed in. Even if it's frustrating to hear and it triggers you in every sort of way, and so much conflict comes out from it. That's been the biggest, like, dating her has been like a workshop in personal growth that's 24/7 for 6 years.
Wow. Okay. And who were these mentors? Were they like authors, or were they people that you worked with one-on-one?
Yeah, two mentors. One is David Cates. He's one of the top tantra teachers in the world. Long story short, I got really sick and burnt out after working a lot 2 years ago. And I read this book called Nature and the Human Soul, and I realized that we don't have initiations for men anymore in our culture. So we have a lot of men in our culture who physically have matured, but developmentally haven't progressed past high school. A lot of men and women, for that example. That's why the West values sex, money, fortune, fame. Like, you just look at magazine headlines and that's what it's all about here. It's because our culture is stuck in adolescence right now. And so I worked with this man to create an initiation, so to speak, into adulthood. And we went and worked together for 2 months. I put my entire life on hold to go work with him. And it was significantly impactful. And then shortly after that, Libby and I met John and Missy Butcher. Do you know? Have you heard of John and Missy yet?
No.
Mind Valley just started publishing Lifebook. Lifebook's their program. John he built Precious Moments. Precious Moments was in the 80s. It's those little figurines with the big doughy eyes that Midwest families love. Right. Yeah. So them and John and Missy are one of the most impactful couples that we've ever met. And they met in their early 20s. They built an empire. Like, Precious Moments was a $600 million per year company. They've raised 4 kids who are amazing kids. And still to this day, they have an incredibly passionate sex life together. And to have all 4 of those things over a period of 30 years is just, you can't do that without being entirely intentional about your relationship and your life. And so we've been able to spend a lot of time with them, and they've influenced us pretty significantly over the years.
Great.
Yeah.
So tell me what's the core things that you're like, these are like 3 things in our relationship that we feel are vital or important, that you feel that most couples aren't doing?
Great. The first thing is couples waste so much energy in the beginning. So if I look at relationship, I think there's a handful of phases that kind of look something like this. Phase 1 is honeymoon, which is you get, if you're lucky, 6 months of bliss with your partner. And it's just amazing and easy and fun. And then you go through the phase of turbulence, which could be, for us, was a really, really challenging 3 years or so. And what happens is you go through the expansiveness of experiencing what love is, for falling in love and getting a taste of that, like, drug, so to speak. And then you go through a period of what we experienced was conflict and challenge, because you realize all of the fantasies about the person aren't true. And this is when all of the stuff starts getting unearthed about how they actually are and how they actually behave, and the social mask comes off. And then after the challenge comes a period of neutrality. And after the period of neutrality comes a period of co-creation, where you can actually create together. And so many couples that I see spend all of their time going back and forth in is this person for me? Are they not for me? The fight comes up, and then when the fight comes up, they start questioning the relationship, as opposed to actually dealing with the challenge that is there in front of them. And so when we got to a point of what we call all-inness, of going all in together, of like, no, we are doing this dance together, and we're fully in on this relationship. And getting to that point unlocks a whole new realm of possibility, because it allows you to reach more depth and more vulnerability in your relationship. Because what happens is that If you're fighting and then one person goes to threaten the relationship and they're like, I just don't know if this is for me, or this is just too painful.
Right.
And then what it does, it activates fear, and it activates cortisol, which spikes like this whole sense of like back and forth and power dynamics. And so they use that as a way to actually get the upper hand, unconsciously or consciously in some ways. And when you get to a place of all-inness, that doesn't happen anymore. And when that doesn't happen, you can focus all of your energy on dealing with whatever the conflict is, moving through it, and continuing to create together. Is this making sense?
Yeah, totally.
So most couples spend so much time in the back and forth and not realizing that the first destination you want to get to, or like hoop that you want to jump through, or gateway, portal, whatever you want to call it, is committing to being all in with this person, which is terrifying in and of itself, especially as a man.
Okay. All right. So do women have as much of a fear of this, or are you saying mostly men do?
I think both do. I just know my perspective from a man, and as our desire for freedom, which drives us pretty consistently. It's a pretty scary experience. And it was terrifying for Libby as well. It feels like you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you're holding hands and you're looking at each other and you're like, oh my God, should we jump? Do you want to jump? Okay, we're going to jump. Okay, let's go. And then you go into this free fall. That's kind of how it felt to me.
And so, okay, so but there's so many things I feel in relationships in general that I see time and time again, that is just wrong with communication and things like that. Share something else that you guys do that's quite different than the norm, or that that most people aren't doing?
We have a ritual devoted to love that we do every week. And we learn this from John and Missy.
I love it. Please tell me more.
So we have rituals for all the things that are the most important in our lives. And if you're an entrepreneur, you probably have a morning ritual, which you hold really sacred. You probably have some sort of ritual around working out, eating healthy, meditating, to stay on track.
Right.
And in my experience, love is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, yet we have no ritual or no practice devoted to it. So what Libby and I do is once a week, we come together, and it is for between 1 and 3 hours. And if we're at our condo here in Boulder, we'll make a fire, and we'll make like a little nest of comfy pillows and blankets and stuff by it. And we'll write down our intentions for what do we want out of the experience for that night. And it could be a challenge that we're dealing with in life, insight that we're looking for, a challenging dynamic that's happening between us that we want guidance on, all of the above. And we write it down on a sheet of paper, and then we set them off. We read them to each other. These are our intentions. And then we set a timer for 20 minutes. And for the next 20 minutes, there's no talking. And all we do is we lay with each other and be with each other. And this could lead to sex. This could lead to a massage. This could lead to cuddling. This could lead to us just being by ourselves for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the purpose is to get the animal body relaxed and opened together. And so for 20 minutes of no talking, only being in the animal, in the body together, and allowing that to communicate. And then after 20 minutes, the timer goes off, and then we allow the natural flow of whatever comes up to guide us. And it is a space where we're able to bring the things that are scary to bring up, like the things that you would normally want to put off, or the things that you wouldn't want to acknowledge.
Right.
And it creates a space every week for us to bring that up and to work through that together. And it's been profound what happens during these experiences for us. And it's a way that we stay really connected energetically, and allows us to stay aligned on the direction in our lives and what we want to create together.
And is it like It's like Thursday nights, like it's every Thursday night, like nothing
Yep.
else gets in the way of that.
Yep. Mondays or Thursdays, depending. Sometimes we're traveling, it has to get pushed and whatnot. But we're pretty consistent with it.
Great. Oh, I really love that. That sounds so amazing. And it just allows both of you time to just open up to each other and you said this is weekly, right? Yeah, weekly.
Yep.
So you're not
Yeah.
waiting a month or anything like that. It's like whatever is coming up, it's coming out and you're bringing it out to the surface.
Yeah. So, and to put this into perspective, John and Missy, who built this massive empire, did all of this stuff amazing. And when we've grilled them with their questions about what made it all work so well. And the one thing that they've said over and over is that they prioritize their relationship ahead of everything else, which is completely counterintuitive to our Western culture, which is very individualistic. It's like, I'm going to do my thing and I need to be like an independent man or an independent woman. And they prioritize their relationship. And the number one thing that they do is this ritual. No matter where in the world they are, no matter what's going on in business, what's happening with their kids, this is the one constant that allows everything else to spin around it. And I tell you what, since doing it, we've figured out why they hold it so sacred and why it's so important, because it actually feels that way. When you're in a relationship and things are bad in relationship, the whole world seems like it's falling apart.
Right.
And if things are good, everything's amazing.
So I can almost hear the women saying, well, if you've got, you don't have any kids now, and well, what if you have kids and it's not possible to, to have 1 to 3 hours every week. I mean, I'm doing laundry, I'm cooking dinner, I'm helping the kids with homework. And so when you say prioritize the relationship above all else, and they have a family, because they had children too. You said they had 4 kids.
Yeah.
So they still, I'm assuming, made that same time commitment despite having children and all of that.
Yeah. And I'm not a parent yet, so I can't speak to it. I haven't jumped through that gateway. But I think probably one of the greatest things you could do for your children is to be in a relationship that is deeply loving and profound in that way. And in my experience with John and Missy, this was, no matter what was going on with the kids, this was the priority, period. And if you can't do it every single week, start with once every 2 weeks for an hour or 2 hours or something. But I think if you get into the habit of this, you will experience the benefits, and it will be one of those things that you will feel pulled to do sooner than later.
Right. And how amazing to be able to, when you they had children who also were seeing that they were making their own time a priority together as parents, and to be able to learn that and grow up with it and say, oh no, mom and dad are having their private time. You're not supposed to go in there. Don't disturb them. And they,
Totally.
when they grow up learning that too, and making it part of their lives as well, and seeing it as norm.
Totally. And knowing that, I think it's important to have, I personally believe that the relationship should be prioritized over the children, not in the life or I think, how do I say this? I think your kids need to know that you are a solid unit. My experience with kids is that they can try and triangulate you, and find the cracks where you're not synced together and kind of wiggle in there. And I think your kids need to know that you're a solid unit together. Again, I'm not a parent yet.
Right.
Call me in 10 years and I'll tell you if I still feel this way, but that's how I feel now.
This is awesome. Are there any other rituals that you do together, or even if it's physical activity or dates outside, aside from this that you also do?
Yeah. I mean, so our life is run, we do a quarterly deep dive together. So every quarter we go off, and we vision what we want the next quarter of our life to look like. And this is 2 days away from home. 2 days, it could be a night, an evening. And we talk about what worked over the past quarter, what challenged us, what we want to change, who we want to become. That happens every quarter. Every month we do reflections and reviews on it. And then every week we do the ritual, which is devoted to love and usually sex. And Every week we do a board meeting, which is devoted to the functional aspects of life, which is where are we going this week and what needs to get done around the house and what bills need to be paid. And so that you're keeping the two separate. I think is really easy in relationships to get stuck in the mundane of everything's kind of gray and you're at date night, but you're actually talking about what you need to do the next day. And then all of like the fun and seduction and flirtation goes out the window. So we try and keep those separate. Yeah. So we try and keep those as separate as possible. And what happens when you have a standing board meeting, Libby and I just completed it right before this call. When you have a standing board meeting, you don't need to bring that stuff up when you have connection time, because you know that it's going to get handled whenever the board meeting comes up. So that's been really amazing.
That's so good. That's so good, because it's like you're trying to go out on date night. I mean, I'm sure this happens every single day to people. So in relationship, you go out date night, you're at dinner, and you're like, oh, did you pay the bill? I mean, I got this late notice. And then it's like, then you're pissed and then you're yelling. And then how many times have you been to a restaurant where you see couples yelling or they're not talking to each other and they're just like so pissed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that energy that started the relationship, that was around seduction, flirtation, play, love, passion, all of it goes out the window. And that's not fun.
Yeah. No. Oh, yeah. That's good. I like keeping it separate. So your board meetings are weekly or monthly?
Yeah, every week for 30 to 60 minutes, depending on what we need.
Oh, okay. Cool. And then when you go away, it's quarterly. So once every like 4 months?
Every 3 months. Yep.
Oh, nice. And so you must be, so then you do like little 1 or 2 night getaways kind of thing locally, or?
Yeah, it could be, we could go up to a hot springs. It could be as simple as find an Airbnb outside of your city. We like to be off in nature when we're doing stuff like this. We might go camping, things like that. But get out of the day-to-day routine, get out of your normal space. And it's a space to like step back, reflect on the past, take an inventory of what's happening now, and look to the future. And then make sure that you're oriented in the right direction together. And this part gets really, really fun when you do these retreats. If you guys email me, I'll send you a list of questions that we ask each other, because during these little retreats, we're asking questions that are designed to access what are the deepest desires. Like one of the questions, that we'll ask is, what are the things that you're craving right now? And one of the questions that usually brings up a lot of really good stuff is, what is the thing that you really want that you're afraid to ask for? And then what we do is we get all of these desires out and on the table. And then we figure out where's the most energy going, like the most energy from Libby's desires, the most energy from my desires, and where does it overlap? And then how do we create the next 3 months of our life around that overlap?
Oh, brilliant. And do you do anything like when you go to bed? Is there any little ritual before you go to bed at all?
Not really. I mean, I try and do 5-minute journals and stuff, but that's not super. It comes and goes. We try, from a daily ritual standpoint, we try and do walks a couple times a week. We try and take a walk. And again, this is another thing we learned from John and Missy, who really influenced in this. And now that we have a dog, it makes it way easier. But the walk, it's 20, 30 minutes. It's just to like debrief on the day, to catch up. It's just that space and time together to making sure that we stay synced and stuff.
Oh, great. Oh, this is so great. So, and then have you done any work with, oh my God, I'm blanking right now. The Way of the Superior Man. What's his name?
Data.
Yeah. Have you done work with him or workshops or anything like that?
I saw him talk at Summit Series. I like his stuff. His stuff was the first stuff that got me into this world. I think his book Intimate Communion is one of the better ones. That describes like there's stages of relationship. There's stage 1, which is codependence, where you're overlapped on each other, and your entire sense of self-worth and self-esteem is dependent on how the other person is responding to you. And so if your partner gets triggered at you or upset with you, it causes this conflict for you internally, and you go back and forth into these power dynamics. Stage 2 is independent, which is like the independent man and the independent woman, and you split everything 50-50. And the challenge with stage 2 is that there's generally a lack of polarity. So there's a lack of sex and turn on in stage 2. But it's healthier than stage 1. And then stage 3 is this stage of what he calls intimate communion or interdependence, which is where each partner is relaxed into their natural essence, and you are co-creating from that space. So the masculine is naturally relaxed into the masculine, the feminine is relaxed into the feminine. And he goes really in depth into that book, and I really, really dig it.
Very cool. I have a couple of his books, but I don't have this one. So I have to pick that up.
It's a good one.
So how do you think that, I mean, how do more men sort of, not everyone has these really great mentors, how can women sort of lead men to kind of think about this? Are we just saying, hey, I would love for us to do such and such every week. Are you down for something like that? Is it us as women sort of bringing men, sort of leading them?
This is a really, really good question. So the preface to this question is, are you clear on what? I'm trying to think of if you were to ask this question to me 4 years ago or 3 years ago, mm-hmm. where would I be and what would my answer be? Like in my mid-20s,
right?
And how would that be different than now? And I think there is a question of what is the longer term vision looking like? Like I've known for a while that I've wanted to have a long, deeply fulfilling relationship that I walk through life with my person. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of been there from the beginning. So as a woman, how can you get your man, if he's not leading this, how do you get him to see this? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Man, you know what? I don't know if I have a good answer for you, but here's what I can tell you. Over the past few months in particular, my trust in Libby's intuition has increased dramatically. And in that, I've watched some of the most magical things happen in our life because of that. Like I told you 2 months ago, we pretty much like on a whim adopted a rescue dog and flew to LA and bought an RV, and now we're subleasing our place and we're going to spend the next year traveling around the US in this minimalistic lifestyle and
so cool.
Living this way. It's so much fun, and it was all driven by Libby's intuition and desires. And so the question is, how can you lead us there? And so I'm thinking of, how did Libby lead me to this state?
Yeah.
We've ran experiments in the past, and I would one of the things when we've reflected on our relationship, and maybe this is where you actually start with it. Maybe this is where, when we've reflected on our relationship, the periods where we've had the most enjoyment and satisfaction and fun is where we've put all of our energy into one person's desire for a period of time. So at one point we were on a trip to Costa Rica, and we did a thing for a week where we only let Libby's desires guide us. So for a week, it was like, whatever she wants to do, we're going to go from that standpoint, and we're going to do that. And it was one of the most fun weeks that we've had traveling. And we're kind of rolling back to that phase. So I wonder what would happen if you're asking your man, you want a deeper sense of connection, and you go to him and tell him that you're wanting that, and ask him if there's anything that he's wanting right now, and to go fully into running an experiment where whatever it is that he wants, you give that to him for a period of time. How does this sound when I say it to you?
I mean, I would do it. would I bring that up to him and put it in that way? I could. Sure. I would also be somebody that just, I'm so forward that I would say, hey, look, I would love to be able to, you know, maybe a ritual or something weekly or something like that, and sort of bring it up to him. But I feel like men may not want to be told what to do. So, am I right about that? You kind of don't want to be told. You kind of want to be able to help with coming up with a solution to it, maybe?
You know, one of it depends on the thing, you know. I definitely don't like being told what to do. So like, let's get that out of the way. I think you're totally, absolutely 100% clear. I agree with that statement. I do not like being told what to do. One of the things, so we're engaged now, and we've been thinking about vows and writing our vows and what those are going to look like. And one of the vows that we're toying with is that any true desire that you ask, the answer will be yes. And what that means, and what my experience has been with when I've brought vulnerable, true desires to Libby, and I expressed them from that state of like, this is what I'm wanting, and it feels scary to ask for, and I would love to have your help with this, or, you know, do you want this too? And what I generally find is that when you're connected to that state, there's overlap, and your partner becomes naturally drawn in to it. Now, if you go to it from a place of like, hey, I want more connection, and we're not getting enough connection in our relationship, and you know, like if you get on that path, your man's just going to be like, oh, like he's going to tune
Shut
out
down.
and not listen
Shut down.
immediately. Totally.
Yeah.
So I think there's a fine line in the presentation of like how you ask and from what state you ask from.
Yeah.
And when you're connected to that, we've really found that there's magic in that, and that each person will stretch a little bit farther to make those desires come true. And I think it's really beautiful.
So when you were learning from the mentors, and they were telling you like, well, these are some of the things that we do, and you were asking them, were you already opened, or did Libby have to come and say, hey, I really like what they do. Do you want to do something like that? Or were you both like, yes, we both want to do it at the same time? Like, how was that?
We've been pretty synced from the beginning. From the beginning, we've wanted to build an epic partnership. So the context when we met when we were 23 and 25. We almost never even got together. And long story short, I was at a Tony Robbins conference, and I was learning about limiting beliefs, and Libby was in Des Moines and feeling frustrated. We weren't even like officially quote unquote dating at this point. And she was thinking about, you know, I think we should just move on. And we asked about why. And she's like, well, I think relationships might limit your hopes and dreams. I think being in a relationship would limit mine, which seems to be a pretty common belief at times, or could be. And I was like, do you think that's really true? And this is like straight up, you know, Byron Katie framework stuff.
Right.
So I learned this when I was 25, and I was like, do you think it's really true? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, what about like beyond a shadow of a doubt, you know, like, do you think there's some possibility where that isn't true? She's like, well, maybe not. It's like, well, what if that weren't the case? Like, what would be true? And she said, well, then relationship would actually amplify your hopes and dreams. And I was like, yeah. And that's been the context that we've been in since we've met. And that's been the purpose of our relationship from the beginning. So we've always had a natural affinity towards wanting to explore the space and wanting to have a deep connection together.
That's so brilliant, because I think they're definitely, from what I, you know, see in partnerships that I see around me, it's like the woman really wants it, and the guy's really skittish, and he's kind of running, and she's kind of chasing him, and there's no real connection, and no one's really talking, and she wants him to like read her mind, and she doesn't tell him anything about what she wants, but she's pissed that he doesn't know how to read her mind. So I see this so much, right?
Totally. Yep. And we've went through, just so you know, like we never started off, like we've went through those patterns. Like we've went through the patterns where Libby is wanting me to anticipate her needs, and I'm like I'm withdrawing and being this punk little brat that's like, like being aloof and disconnected. And we've burned through a lot of that over the years. And I think I just want people to know that there's a possibility for a relationship where it doesn't have to be that way. And it doesn't mean that you need to leave the relationship that you're in. You don't have to go searching to find it. Like, you can actually create it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I believe that that's true. I think that maybe some people think that, oh, well, the guy, forget it. He's not conscious. I don't want him. I'm just not going to date somebody like that. Like right off the bat, without really knowing or getting to know them or trying to cultivate that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think that there are also, would you agree with me, that there are men who would love a relationship like this, but really don't know how to do it?
Yeah. See, this is what I think the problem is more than anything, is that I think, because I think you're right, that there are some men that are just like aloof and like emotionally unavailable. And I know some really remarkable, amazing men that have their shit together. Mm-hmm. That it's, for whatever reason, they're searching for their woman and they haven't found her. And this is why I think the bigger issue here is that we don't have role models in society and culture. And the default answer, how it seems now, is that you should break up and move on and go find it somewhere else, versus being willing to actually go into like the deepest, darkest depths with the person that you're with and hang out there, even when it's challenging and even when it's super painful.
By the way, you can give my information to all of those amazing men that you know.
Deal.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part is, unless obviously the person's a psychopath and they're fucked up and you don't want a relationship with them to create something deep and meaningful if they're not all right and all together mentally. So any last things on like any major points that you're like, okay, for the couples out there or even the single women that you would want us to know about?
Yeah. There anything that I want you to know about for couples or single women? I really, there is, for women in particular, that are listening. And I want to give you a little insight into how to manipulate us for good in a positive way for men, and to give you access to having more power around us. We are designed to want to serve you. Mm-hmm. I think at our essence and at our core.
Yeah.
I think it is our natural state as men, like as masculine men, to want to serve women. And I personally get immense joy and satisfaction out of doing that. Mm-hmm. And the way to get us to do that more often is to continue to focus on positive reinforcement versus negative. And it's so funny and it's so simple. But the more that you can reflect to us where you find us attractive, where you feel protected, where you feel held, where you feel loved, when we do little things for you, the more that you reflect those back to us, the more that we're going to do them, period. No question. most of the time we just don't know if it's working or not. Like you mentioned, like we're aloof dudes that have no idea about how you work. Totally true. You guys are women are a completely different breed, and I think that we actually are pretty clueless when it comes to understanding how women work. But I know that we naturally have the desire to serve, and I think the more that you can reward that, the more that you're going to mold your man into this really incredible human being. I feel so lucky to have Libby's reflections and her insights and her guidance on a day-to-day basis. It is the most valuable well of information that has impacted my life, aside from like maybe, my parents raising me for 18 years or something like that.
Right.
But it's so valuable. And I think I want you to know the power that you have to mold us into the vision that you have for us.
I love that. Because I think that women, and going back to what you had said even about Libby's intuition, I think as women, we each hold very powerful, intuitive, just everything. I think we feel things, we know things instinctively, and I think that more women should really tap a little bit more into that, or allow that intuition to kind of come through. It's always there and it's always talking to us. And I think for a lot of us, we tend to like push it away because our mind is like, no, I need that job because it's going to pay good. And then intuition's like, it doesn't feel good when you're in there. And
yes.
And so really following that intuitive pull, because it's really strong. Men definitely have it as well. But I just,
there's something unique, and I don't want to get into like gender roles because that like offends people. So much stuff offends people now. But so my experience with Libby, her intuition is a superpower. It is beyond belief, the things that she can sense that I am completely oblivious to. And so the way we began to kind of orient in relationship is that the masculine is responsible for setting the vision, like the long term of where we are headed. And I've actually began to surrender to Libby's guidance on a moment to moment experience. So I'm leading the vision of like, here's the direction that we're going. This is the destination that I see us at. And she's leading, okay, so it's like driver navigator. It's like vision and intuition. So I have the direction and she is navigating on a moment to moment basis based off of what her intuition is. So the more that you develop, if you are a woman, the more that you develop your trust in your own intuition, I think the more that your man is going to see that as well. And what we're starting to experience is that if you both do this and can almost surrender into trusting the other person, in energy that gets activated, like there's this energy loop that happens between the two of you that becomes super potent. And I feel like we're still beginning to just discover what that actually is, but it feels really exciting to me.
I love the way that sounds. Surrendering into each other. I think there's a lot of people who don't do that. They just don't.
It's terrifying.
It is. And I think that there are, the majority of my patients that come to see me who are these very powerful women, CEOs of their companies, entrepreneurs, very successful women, completely burnt out, their adrenals, and I take care of them medically, are, 24/7 in their masculine. They need to be in control. So for them, surrender is a foreign word. And surrendering to a man is even more, I would think, even more so. So,
yeah.
So it's really hard to surrender.
Agreed.
It's really hard. Even when you're conscious about it and you're like, no, just, like melt into it. Just let it go?
I think it is really hard. And the way if you look at the way that we orient a relationship from a spiritual perspective is that I look at my relationship with Libby as a hologram to my relationship with the universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And so the more that I develop my ability to be surrendered and trusting of her, simultaneously what I'm noticing is the more that I am surrendered and trusting of whatever wants to come through me. And that, I think, is where ultimate power actually comes from. It's from that type of state where some of the greatest creations are born. So that's the theory that we're running with now. Give me like another 5 or 10 years and we'll see how it actually plays out in reality. But it feels true in my system.
Now, your trip, the RV, traveling all around, whose initial idea was that?
Libby.
Okay.
Getting a dog, getting an RV, everything over the past 2 months, which has put us into this incredible space, was all guided by her.
And when she brought it up, were you like, oh my God, yes? Or were you?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I was completely against it. My last relationship, I had a dog and I had to leave the dog during the breakup, and it was the most painful experience of the whole breakup, was saying goodbye to Zoe. And so I had this whole like post-traumatic like thing with that. And it kept coming up, and she kept trusting it, and it kept coming up. And I was just like, okay, if that's what you really want, let's do it. And same with the RV thing. I felt more excited about that at the beginning, but still pretty reserved and hesitant. It kept coming up. It kept coming up. We kept leaning into it, and it's become wild and magical.
It sounds it. It really does. I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
For both of you. Yeah.
Me too.
Well, this has been such an epic conversation. Thank you so much, because a conversation like this has yet to be on the podcast. And I knew that you were actually the only one that came to mind. And I'm like, I have to get him on here. So I thank you for your wisdom and for shining a light where a lot of women feel really in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so welcome. I love talking about this stuff. I told you at the beginning, I don't get to talk about this often. I would like to talk about it more. So if this resonates with you, email me so I know. Andy@thefoundation.com. And yeah, it's something we spend a lot of time on, but it's for whatever reason, it hasn't been the priority to talk too much publicly about it yet. But I hope that changes over the next few years.
Oh, yeah. And so where can people find you?
Yep. AndyDrish.com, ANDYDRISH is the website. Andy at Andy Drish or Andy at thefoundation.com. Both of those will email me directly.
Awesome. And 3 quick final questions that I ask all my guests. First one is, what do you currently have at your bedside?
Nothing. I mean,
like a table with books or anything like that.
Nothing. I mean, we're so in flux right now. Like, there's the RV bed, which has nothing, and then we just got back to the apartment, which we've been subleasing for the past month, which has nothing. So straight up, I have nothing next to my bed right now.
Is there a book that you're reading right now that you're totally in love with?
I'm rereading Atlas Shrugged, which is way different than this topic. But I love that book. And then this year, I've really geeked out on the Tao Te Ching.
Okay.
And I've read that multiple times. And Wayne Dyer has an audio interpretation. He spent a year reading all of the interpretations of the Tao Te Ching and meditating on it and writing a book, a whole year of his life dedicated to it. And it's amazing. And it mirrors a lot of the stuff which we talked about on this call.
Yeah, I know that he wrote. I'd never read through that book that he wrote. on the Tao Te Ching.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And what's one of your biggest indulgences?
Indulgences, like guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely dark chocolate, but dance parties, festivals, and costumes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We just got back this weekend. We did the regional burn in Utah with my buddy, and it was so much fun. And I love that world.
Oh, so cool. So cool. What was the name of the first book that you mentioned?
Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, which is a whole book around, entrepreneurship and business. And it was written in the 1950s, but is a staple for any entrepreneur, I think.
Very cool. Well, Andy, it has been such a pleasure to reconnect with you after about 1.5 years or so. I'm so happy to hear that you're going to be doing this really cool, exciting trip. And I'd love to just continue connecting. I'd love to have you back on the podcast at some point. And thank you so, so much.
Let's do it. I would love to. Keep me posted. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Take good care.
You too.
Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this incredible conversation with Andy. I mean, I'm still swooning from it. So for more information on him and for all the show notes, head on over to margaretromero.com/episode 39. And until next week, my loves, I will speak to you then.